Hi, everybody. Today, I'm really excited to be joined by Julia Waters, and we're going to be talking about how to build your confidence by overcoming your fears and limiting beliefs and taking action and really learning how to kind of manage some of the negative messaging that our brains gives us that stops us doing the things we really want to do. And the reason we're recording this session is because Julia came to us a group that I run locally to help support female entrepreneurs and ran this fantastic session for them. So we thought, what better than to record it so we can share it with even more people. And I'm also really excited to do this because Julia is my favorite collaborator ever. And Julia and I met a few years ago, immediately clicked, and I said, I absolutely want to do something with you. And now we have a podcast together called the Bad Bitch Podcast, which is just out. And also, we run something called the Bad Bitch Reset 2 or 3 times a year. And that's to help women build their confidence and achieve their goals. And so, what Julia brings, and Julia, in a second, I'll get you to talk about what you bring, but because Julie is a clinical hypnotherapist, what she can do is actually help clients kind of leapfrog forward in their confidence and overcome some of those kind of mental limiting beliefs. So I absolutely love your approach. I think it's really powerful, but also because of all your studies and understanding how the brain works, you've got a really nice way of explaining basically how our brain gets in the way quite a lot of the time and can sabotage us. So we're going to have a little workshop, and it's going to be something that you can watch and pause and do the exercises to kind of really help build that confidence and overcome some of those limiting messages. But before we get started, Julia, what I'd love is for you to just introduce yourself and share a bit about why you became a hypnotherapist and also how hypnotherapy can help people boost their confidence.
Oh my gosh, what an introduction. Thank you so much, my darling. And I thoroughly enjoy everything we're building together, and it's just such a exciting journey, and I'm thrilled to be going on it with you. And thank you for having me here. So, and hopefully, yes, what we will do is we'll do a little intro. I'll tell you all about me in a very succinct way, and then we will get on with the workshop, and I'll just guide you through some like real because it comes to confidence, when we feel like we have to make these big sweeping changes all the time, and the reality is, as I discuss with my clients, that our brain's just not comfortable with that. So the real aim of this workshop is just to understand what's going on in our brains and how we can sort of navigate some real gentle changes that we can actually sustain. Because we've all been there, right? We've set those goals or they just seem a little bit of a stretch. But what we do if we set like more like goals that our brain is comfortable with, we can
Mm.
find that we can navigate much easier through those changes. But yes, just to circle back in terms of why I became a hypnotherapist, I've been in finance for 20 years now. And it's been a privilege to work in that industry. My favorite bit of that was really helping clients on their journey, achieving, like helping them buy their houses, helping them just develop and expand their businesses. It was always less about like the structuring of the facilities and definitely the math element, and definitely more about helping people achieve their goals and move forward and achieve their dreams. That's always been really something that's resonated. And then one of my closest friends became a hypnotherapist. And really, after she'd been doing that for a few years, I looked at her and I looked at like how she was enhancing her clients' lives further in a real meaningful way. And I just thought, do you know what? I'd really love to be able to do that to help people overcome like, and some of the things that people will come and see me for, like anxiety, depression, fear of flying, other phobias, can be really like debilitating and really crippling to preventing them moving forward with their lives. And just to help them navigate that and move forward is just like brilliant. And
Mhm.
it's the privilege of a lifetime.
And
And
I think that's just to cut in there, but I think that's something that really connected on is that both of us, both in my work as a career coach and your work as a hypnotherapist, is we want people to have more success in whatever sense success is for them, whatever their goals are. So success looks different for everyone, but we want them to have more success and less stress.
definitely.
And that's like such a winning combination because stress can kind of almost ruin everything and take the shine out of things. And achieving our goals obviously if our goals are positive for ourselves, that's wonderful, but that's also very confidence building. And I
Definitely.
really love that you take a very gentle approach, but actually clients can get really big results.
hu- Definitely huge results, and it's just amazing to watch them turn the tide and to start building their confidence through the actions they're taking. um, we always say that, well, the thing that I say to all my clients is that the action leads to confidence. We feel like we need to be confident first, but actually it's the actions, and when we take it, even if we're feeling like slightly not like we can conquer the world, when we take those actions, that gives us that real world evidence we can do things. And what I do in clinic with my clients in terms of the hypnotherapy, because people are nervous about hypnotherapy because of what they've seen on TV and on stage and friends, etc. A lot of people always flag with like with Chandler with listening to the tapes in Friends with
Yeah, I'm a strong, confident
I am a
woman.
strong,
I
confident
love
woman.
that.
I know. And isn't that that's just like that's just a real reference to how amazing our brains is and how much they actually hold. Because I
Mm,
definitely haven't seen Friends for years. Maybe it's the same for you, but that really sticks in our head, and we can recall the line like
yeah.
immediately off the top of our head. That just shows how amazing in the depth of our brains and the information they hold. But yes, with what we do and when we talk about in clinic is that we combine, because I do solution focused hypnotherapy. So we talk about what's going on for the client, but we're aiming to talk about like the problem in a solution focused way, how to move them forward, because we can explore the why, but really what we want to do is get into a position where we can move people gently forward away from where they are. And
Mm,
the way we do that is we combine all the great elements of talk therapy, and we'll talk about what's going on, but then we combine it with an element of relaxation in session. And the relaxation or the trance part of it is really just like having focused attention. You when you're absorbed in a book or when you're absorbed in a movie, that is literally what we're aiming to do. We're just focusing like subconscious and conscious brain on the same thing because it happens so rarely in life. But when we're in that state of focus, it really just is really calming for our brain, and we can find the answers naturally to what we need to know, and we can figure things out in a much clearer way. Because you said about like when we're stressed and when we try and make decisions in that stress state, it's just like it's like a snow globe, right? It's like we've shaken up the snow globe. We all the snow is flying around. That's what our mind's like. They're very busy. We can't see a clear picture. If we let the snow in the snow globe settle, we can see
mm.
much clearer the picture again. And that's the same with our brain. When we let things settle, we can definitely think in a much more logical way that benefits us more in terms of moving forward.
And I think that's where, your work, my work, but also the work of therapists is so valuable because sometimes that the space you need for it to settle isn't you sitting thinking about it over and over again. It's talking it through with someone,
Yes.
with a professional who can help you reframe that, see that from a different perspective. I mean, I'll have clients coming into one-to-one coaching sessions on with a career problem, super stressed about something, and we have a conversation and halfway through they're like, oh my god, this is actually fine. I don't know why I was so worked up about it. And that's the snow globe settling.
Yeah.
But we get the privilege of creating space for people to do that. And we also have people we go to, and I have my own therapist I go to do that with. So I think everyone can really benefit from that space with another practitioner to do
For
that.
sure, for sure, because it's just really helpful to, especially if our brains are very busy and we've got these thoughts and we're going back and forth, back and forth. If we verbalize it, we to communicate clearly what we want to say, we have to sort of apply logic to it to
Mm.
communicate it, and that is really helpful in terms of when we actually speak it aloud, helping us arrive at a solution.
Totally. Now, before we get started, obviously we will share in the description the worksheet we're going to use today, but also the details of how people can contact you. Can people work with you remotely or is it only in person?
It's remotely mostly, and I find it works really well for like seeing my clients remotely. Um, Mainly because it fits in with their time scales. They will typically be at home, so they're already relaxed, which is the best place to do this work and to feel more settled. They then don't have to get in the car and rage. So yes, I generally see and get worked up again driving home. So yes, seeing my clients online, it works very well because they already feel safe and settled, and the work still it works in the same way as if we were in person. The way I explain it is like with the relaxation element is you to get the you'll have your favorite song and you'll have songs that you love listening to, and to get that emotional reaction from that song that it naturally produces, you don't have to hear that song played on a live orchestra in person. You can listen to it on headphones, you can listen to it in the comfort of your own home, and you can still get those feelings. And it's the same with hypnotherapy. You can still replicate that same feeling, even though I am not in your room.
And you give people lovely recordings so they can
Yes.
then access the audios later and go back through the visualization. So
Yes.
you're really equipping clients with wonderful tools that they can keep using. It's not just when they're with you that they get that benefit.
Correct, yes, because and the relaxation is there for them to use whenever they want, and especially with the visualizations, because we'll touch on this obviously in the workshop, but for our brain, there's very little difference chemically between what we imagine and what we do in real life. So every time we visualize and do that lovely relaxation, it's like a mental rehearsal for our brain. So when we actually come to do it in real life, our brain's like, oh, we've already been here before. This is cool.
I know we're going to talk a bit more about that later. So shall we get
Yes.
straight into the
Let's.
workshop itself? And do you want to share the workbook as well?
Yes, let's do that. I'm very excited. So, in terms of like when we talk about confidence, the first thing I do with all my clients is I just explain to them what we are. Well, first of all, before we get into talking about our brain, I just want people to have a little think about when it comes to promoting your work, raising prices if you're a business owner, saying no in any work environment, being more visible, taking credit for your work. What are the kind of thoughts that come up for you? Is it that do you overthink it? Do you stray into avoidance or people pleasing? So now is a really good opportunity to just establish where you are. So to pause the video now and have a think about what are those feelings that really come up when you are promoting yourself and you're thinking about stepping into your most confident self. So have a pause of the video now, and then when you're ready, you can just come back to it once you've had a little moment to just settle those thoughts around that.
Can I share some examples of things I
Yes.
often see with clients? If you're not sure about kind of what this looks like for you, I do get a lot of clients where they know they need to be more visible or promote themselves more at work and they hold themselves back. And a lot of these thoughts come up. They're worried about what other people are going to think. Are other people going to suddenly think that they're very arrogant because they're promoting themselves suddenly? So they're worried about other people's judgment. But then also the perfectionism comes in, where they worry that, well, they won't speak perfectly, or they're going to speak up in a meeting, but what if they say something that is incorrect, or they ask a question that seems like a silly question? So it's almost like they're marking themselves before they even do the thing,
Mm.
and then that stops them from speaking up and raising their visibility. What these thoughts about worrying what other people think about you, it means that they play it much smaller, and they're not really self-actualizing and like being their, doing their best work and actually sharing all their real talents with people because these thoughts are really limiting them. Is that something that you see with some of your clients as well?
Oh, for sure. And it's like, it's the reason that I called my business Bad Bee or Bad Bitch Hypnotherapy is literally because I got fed up of seeing amazing women, whether they're at work or my friends or I just encountered in the supermarket. And I could see how awesome they are immediately, and they just don't believe it. And so that was why I primarily work with women, because I want to be able to empower them with the tools to realize how awesome they are. Even if they can get a little bit, even if you're looking at this video now and you're like, it seems like a bit of a stretch. Even if you can like realize just 1% more what all your friends and your family already know, then that's a win. It was really just because I want to empower people to be able to break free of that very convincing self-talk that we all have, and like you said, stepping towards self-actualization.
Amazing. So yeah, so anyone watching, think about some of the the goals, but like not your realistic goals, like your real dreams, what you really want to do. And this is for men and women, but what would you really love to do? And then notice what your brain starts saying at that point. Because generally it will then go, oh, but that can't happen because, or this might go wrong, or this is what people might think, or and those are the thoughts that you should be reflecting on now. Those are the patterns that we're going to work on overcoming.
Yes. And when you've finished with those, you can just let those like write them down. You can print this workbook out, you'll have a copy of it. And when you're ready, you can just park them for now. And then what we'll do is we'll just have a little understanding of what is going on in our brain. So, again, with hypnotherapy, sometimes has a reputation for being a bit scary, a bit woo woo, but I can explain it to all of my clients from a very neuroscientific point of view. And so we always start by looking at our brain because there's nothing wrong with our brain, even if we're feeling quite anxious, quite overwhelmed, quite depressed. I always reassure all of my clients that that's nothing wrong with you. It's just your brain just taking its job a little bit too seriously. And we can just tell it that all is well and that things, you can calm down. So we talk about in hypnotherapy logical brain and primitive brain. So the logical brain, prefrontal cortex, is the part that we know as you. So it's the part that makes you human, and it's the part that has all your wonderful communication skills, your numeracy skills, your problem solving, because attached to it, it's got like you can almost think of it like a big sort of vault or a filing cabinet of all your narrative experiences and how you've tackled things and overcome things in the past. And because you've got access to this wonderful database, you can actually, when you receive data in from the outside world of a new situation through your sight, your smell, and your hearing, you're going to tend to respond in a very positive way or a logical way because you've got access to all this information. And even if the situation isn't ideal, you will be more likely to go, okay, it is what it is, and we can do X, Y, and Z to overcome it. And you won't load any emotionality onto the experience. You'll just tend to be very calm and future focused in terms of solving that problem, which is great. Now, there's another part of our brain, which is our primitive brain, and that part of our brain has been with us since the dawn of time. And so it's really there to ensure our survival. And because it's there to ensure our survival, it always thinks about things from the worst case scenario, like the absolute worst possible, because your brain doesn't want you to get caught out. It doesn't want you to like expire because it hasn't noted something. And this part of our primitive brain is very, it reacts from anxiety, anger, depression. It can be a mixture of all three. And yes, it's very emotionally backed. There's not much logic attached to the way it thinks. It's think because when we descend into our logical brain, effectively what we're doing is shutting off all that lovely logical knowledge we got, and we're just purely acting from a survival mechanism place. And that primitive part of the brain been with us since we've been at the dawn of time. And if you think about the kind of things that primitive brains would have been exposed to then, it would have been things that were actual threats to our survival. So like a bear coming to get us, or like hard winters, other tribes people coming to attack us. It would have been things of that severe nature that would have meant the end of our lives. And it hasn't, that part of our brain has not adapted to the way of modern day life. And so what we find is that as we get more anxious and we get more like nervous, depressed, we feel quite angry, our primitive brain is going to start stepping in more, and it's going to start thinking about difficult meetings coming up or traffic on the road or difficult conversations and all these things that stress us out on a daily basis. Our primitive brain is assessing them on the same level of threat as like a bear like coming to eat us. And if you think about it, like the experience, so our primitive brain and our amygdala, which is the center part, will talk to another part of our primitive brain known as our hypothalamus, which is regulating those chemical responses in the body and mind. And that is the part of the brain that if the amygdala perceives there to be a threat, the hypothalamus, hippocampus is where we restoring our pre-pattern programs of response, that's and phobias, that's slightly separate. But the hypothalamus is telling our body, right, okay, we need some like adrenaline, we need some cortisol. Hence, we feel that we can feel like a racing heart. sweaty palms, a nervous tummy, even though we're perfectly safe and like our boss coming into a difficult meeting is not great, it's not a threat to our survival, but we can really feel that anxiety and those real physical symptoms attached to the situation that our primitive brain is creating. And I think Mark Twain sums this up beautifully. And he says, I've known a great many troubles, but most of them have never happened. And it's exactly right when we think about our primitive brain. And as I said at the beginning, with our brain, there's very little difference chemically between when we imagine something and when we do something. Hence why visualization is amazing because it's like a little mental rehearsal. But we can use that mental rehearsal ability also in the other way when it comes to rehearsing and negatively forecasting the future and thinking about like the things that might go wrong in the future. And so yes, we can tend to get in this cycle as our anxiety goes up. We can get into this place where we're thinking about things from that very emotionally charged place. We can start that self-talk, that very loud voice of self-criticism can come to the forefront, and we can get into quite a difficult place.
I can share a kind of good example of this where when I also worked in finance many years ago, and I remember a particular moment where I was on my way into work. I felt good about how work was going in general. I was on the way to work feeling quite confident. I'd already done a lot of kind of confidence and mindset work. And then I looked at my phone and I had an email from my boss saying, I need to talk to you as soon as you come into the office. And it's like this primitive brain or just woke up and went completely crazy. And I'm sat on the DLR going into the city, and my brain's like, oh my God, you're about to get sacked, or someone in your team has done something terrible, or you've made a big mistake you didn't know about. And I completely went into kind of fight or flight. And so much adrenaline. My heart's going completely nuts. And the funny thing is with that Mark Twain quote, I can't actually even remember what the thing is that my boss wanted to talk to me about because it was so minor and it was
Yeah.
none of those things. But that primitive brain, the minute we perceive a threat, someone seems upset with us or we think we've made a mistake, anything that just seems to unsettle the kind of the general, calm of day to day, then the primitive brain kicks in and we get that big stress response.
100%. And it happens like we can't even catch it because it happens so automatically. Because if you think about it, like again, because of the primitive brain preserving our survival in previous times, we or even nowadays, we can't afford for there to be a delay between primitive brain recognizing a threat and us action or acting on that, I should say. It needs to be instantaneous. And so we're in that very emotionally charged position. We're thinking about things from the worst case scenario. But as characterized on the next slide, our primitive brain, when we try and change, because you would in logical brain, you're like, well, that's fine, because we're just going to start thinking about changing things. We're going to put things in place. When we try and change, our primitive brain is like a lighthouse scanning all the time for threats. But it's also quite lazy and it doesn't like change because if you think about it, our brains, when we're encountering different scenarios all the time and we're having to assess them and assess their threat levels, that requires a lot of energy from our brain. Therefore, if we're trundling along in the same routine, even if it doesn't necessarily serve us, our primitive brain is fine with that because it knows what to expect. Because safe, and this is what I say to my clients, safe and happy are not the same thing. Your primitive brain's main driver is to make sure you're safe. Even if you are staying up late doom scrolling, even if you're feeling really stressed as soon as you open your eyes in the morning, you go through work and you have a tough time with the kids, etc. Whatever it is, your brain at the end of the day, if you emotionally eat, if you reach for the bottle of wine, your primitive brain is literally like, well, we're alive. There's no notes. We'll just continue to do this behavior because it knows what to expect in that routine, even if we're not happy and we feel quite miserable, to be
Well, and
honest.
the other aspect of that is not just about like the unhealthy habits, but it can be why people have a lot of secret goals and aspirations. But the primitive brain is like, don't rock the boat.
Yeah, for
You've got a
sure.
job, keep the job. That's safe.
Yes.
That's keeping money coming in. That's food on the table. That's like meeting a very primal need.
Hmm.
Don't rock the boat. Or you're in a relationship, it's not going very well, but it's not like don't challenge that or think about leaving. because it's comfortable, which means it's safe. And as you said, that's not the same as happy, but your brain's trying to avoid any risk that might come with changing the status quo.
Exactly. And especially if we find ourselves within in like say a group of people that are generally quite happy, they're happy not rocking the boat, they're sort of they're moving through their life in a way that feels good to them, and we kind of want to stick our head above the parapet and do something that's really lights us up. Because we are that primitive brain as well, we are tribal people, and that primitive brain, when we in those cavewomen days and cavemen days, if we stepped outside the tribe and we started indulging in perceived risky behavior, that would get us excluded from the tribe. In previous times, that would have meant death, because if we were excluded from the tribe and we had to survive on our own, that would have meant a whole new level of work, like trying to feed ourselves. It means that we would not have survived as far as primitive brain's concerned. Hence, we're still very like reluctant to sort of stick our head through the parapet and to do the things that we want to do if it means that we're not going to be accepted by other people. So when we're trying to change, so our primitive brain unhappy when we're trying to change. So what we're trying to do is our primitive brain will be cool with us operating in our comfort zone. What we tend to do sometimes, especially when we're feeling emotionally charged, we've all been there. We've had that meeting with like the boss or maybe it's the partner. It's like, that's it. I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm leaving my job. I'm leaving my partner. It's like, and primitive brain is going to be like, we've got to make a real emotionally backed, unlogical decision that takes us into that sort of terror zone of change. But that terror zone of change, because we've made such a big sweeping we set goals that are so far outside of our primitive brain's capability, and also remember we still want to be that in that safe and happy space. If we're trying to set goals that make our primitive brain like mad, like the picture, they just won't stick because it's too much for us to uphold. And then when we can't uphold those changes, primitive brain is inevitably going to show up and be like, see, I told you you couldn't do it. And then we get into that space where it just doesn't feel good. So when it comes to sort of taking those steps to make us feel more confident in moving forward, what we're aiming to do is be in the challenge zone. So they're literally like tiny, tiny steps forward. And it's so tiny, it's literally like we want primitive brain to be at a position where they feel it's like, why would I not do it? This is so easy. It's like we don't really like it, but it's okay. It's like, why would we not do this? Because it's a tiny step forward. So that's where we're aiming to be when it comes to sort of moving ourselves gently forward. And then in terms of just a little bit of further sort of things that I talk through with my clients in terms of guidance and moving forward, as I touched on in the beginning, action is what leads to confidence. It's not the confidence that leads to action, because when we take that action and it pays off, we're giving our brain lovely real world evidence that we can pay off and we can be that person. And also, we can get very caught up into that sometimes planning is great, but we there can be a tendency to get caught. We sometimes feel like by doing the planning and writing the plans and writing the strategy and planning everything to the nth degree, we kind of convince ourselves that we're doing something that we're moving towards our goal.
Mm.
But actually, when we take those steps to do the thing, we just need to be the person doing the thing sometimes. It's like we will figure it out. We just got to take imperfect action is always going to be better than perfect delayed action.
I
And
think that's just to give an example, obviously, something that came up in this group of female entrepreneurs is they need to promote themselves. For a lot of them, that means putting clips on YouTube or content on Instagram. And so you can see there can be procrastination and perfectionism of, well, I've got to have a strategy or I've got to map it out or I've got to have the perfect setup to film that. And actually, one of the things we were talking about in the group is just record something.
yes,
Or if that feels too big, just spend 10 minutes watching a video about how to record something and then film your first thing. And even if it's not good enough to put it out, that's okay. But it's getting you to actually take action instead of spending hours thinking about it or planning. But like you said, that doesn't necessarily move you towards your goal.
no. And the great thing about like the world we live in, and I said this in the group when we did this live, is the people that we look up to and we think are doing really awesome jobs, we can, because of the benefit of the internet, we can go on YouTube and be like such and such first podcast or such and such first video, and they'll inevitably come up. And it's just really reassuring to see that people started somewhere. And it's like one of the biggest podcasts in the world. It's like they started literally with a tower desktop PC, recording it on a webcam with like a snow filter across the window, and it's just like them gazing at this little webcam.
Who was that?
Uh, it was Joe Rogan.
Oh, was it?
Yes,
He had snow.
it was. I kid you not, it was like a snow filter going across the camera, and it's him and Jamie, who's been with him since like day
His
one, and
producer, yeah.
and literally they're just gazing at this with a tower desktop PC. It's
But
very interesting.
and this is the great thing also is I think it used to be that, in the days of TV and film production, there was an expectation that any video content needed to be very, very high quality to go out there. And now, because there's so many content creators and people doing things at home or on the move, we're all used to watching content that's filmed in someone's home that's not professionally produced, like this content. And so I don't think consumers or people watching are put off by that. I
Mm.
think what people want is they want to learn something or be entertained. And so again, if that's one of the things you're thinking about that's holding you back is, oh, I don't want to, whether it's filming something or putting a post on LinkedIn, and you're worried about it not being perfect. I think actually really perfectly produced content, people don't connect with it that well. So I think again that perfectionism can get in the way and actually really focus on teaching or sharing useful information or being really authentic.
100%. People want authenticity. I think, especially when we're in a space where we feel like everyone's Instagram, especially, or like their social media in general, is highly curated. People want to have real people, and
Mm,
that's because and that's a real, because we like to see like character. We like to see how people have done it and been there, and we like to see where we've got traits in common, so we can also, if they can do it, we can do it too.
totally, absolutely.
And it's like, and then that becomes into what I say to my clients as well, is like we can fake it till we make it. So if you want to, it's like if we act as if, and we almost play dress up in our brains with being a confident person or doing the things we want to do, while it might feel a bit sort of weird, I wouldn't say inauthentic because it's definitely in us, but it might feel like you're playing dress up to start off with. The more you act like a calm, confident person, or the more you show up and do your goals, rather than feeling like someone that isn't like very confident or someone that just maybe goes round and round in circles rather than acting on their goals, you eventually just become that person by playing dress up in your brain. And if you, when you find you're moving forward and you're setting your steps, your actions to feeling more confident, if it's all going slightly awry, because primitive brain will step up and it will be quite loud, just give yourself grace in the same way that you would like a someone you really care about. You wouldn't lambast them for not hitting their goals that they set for the week. You would probably invariably, if they had like 5 goals, rather than what you would do to yourself and be like, well, you've only done 4.5, that's a complete failure. If it was a friend that was saying it to you, you'd be like, oh my gosh, what you've done is huge. You've done one thing, you've moved forward, and you've got, it's like giving yourself the same level of grace as you would to someone that you really care about. And when it comes to making those changes, what is really helpful, in the same way we want to do that mental rehearsal or playing brain dress up, I feel like there's something in this, that this new brain dress up thing. It's
We'll
it's like
make it, we'll do a podcast on that.
brain dressing up. I love it. And then so yes, imagine what your future you looks like. So your brain loves sort of like it loves to know where it's heading. So the more specific a destination you can give it, whether it's a future you, which can be a year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever timescale you want in the future, or if that's too much, think about what 1% better is. And that's where we really like, we have a, with my clients, it's like we will think about the future, but also we'll start from that position for what 1% better looks like, because we want to build that confidence and start really small when it comes to setting those actions. Like literally, what's a good the examples? So like if you want to be someone that is reading more, it might be that you just read a paragraph or you read one page. Don't set yourself up for like I'm going to read an hour every night. Whereas it set make it achievable. If you're scrolling a lot on social media, if you're doing it for an hour, try doing 50 minutes or 45 minutes. It's literally that small. That in terms of creating that habit change. And habit stacking is a great way to create less friction when you're incorporating good habits and good actions that move you forward. Obviously, this is not a concept that I've come up with. This is James Clear. Atomic Habits is a great book. But the benefit of habit stacking is in our brain, we have established neural pathways. So we have little pathways and little mind maps that tell us how to behave, and they're little automatic habits. And if we want to incorporate a new habit, we can build a brand new neural pathway because our brain is awesome and we can create those new habits. But it's much easier. There's less resistance from our primitive brain if we're sort of like tacking on a habit to something existing. So, like for example, reading your affirmations when you clean your teeth, or having your supplements by your car keys, anything like that where you've already got a very established habit you can bolt onto, and it's a lot smoother transition. And if you set yourselves like some action points and you find they're not panning out, don't be afraid to review and adjust and just course correct, because there's many routes to the destination, and it's about the more we try and course correct, that's much better than trying to plan the perfect map to where we want to go. The way we'll get there is by taking the action. And so, what I would like you to do in terms of like the next little exercise, in terms of your confidence scale, what I'd like you to think about. So, 0 is your most least confident. Like, I can't leave the house. I feel really miserable. I'm just literally paralyzed by fear in terms of taking action. And 10 is like your highest vibe life. Like you're so confident, you're doing everything that you want to do. Where do you currently fit on that scale? And think, just be quite intuitive around it. Don't overthink it. Just feel like what number feels like you are at that position right now, and just make a note of that. And then I also want you to think in terms of reminding your brain that you are awesome. Why are you not lower on the scale? What are you already doing that led you to arrive to that number that's already working really well? So now is a good time to pause the video and have a think about those questions. And then when you're ready to come back, in terms of like moving you up your confidence scale, just have it. And this is just a game of imagination. There's no stakes. You are just playing around with this. As I say, we're literally just running scenarios in our head. You're not committed to anything. You don't have to do it. It's just exploring what it might look like if you took one step up your confidence scale. So if you're feeling currently like a 7, if you woke up tomorrow morning and you felt like an 8, how would you know you were an 8? So you don't know you're feeling more confident. It's more about what are you doing in real life that shows you've moved up that scale. Are you perhaps getting up in the morning and not hitting snooze? Are you emailing out like a pitch email to different podcasts you want to appear on? Are you going to different networking events? How are you knowing that you're moving forward, and how are you handling those challenges and obstacles? And what are you doing on the daily that makes you feel more confident? This is just some exploration to start off with, as I said. And if you're finding that hard, because primitive brain will be like, well, I don't know, have a think about people that you really admire and how they move through life. Think about like, yeah, the traits that they embody. How are they showing up? How would they tackle moving up their confidence scale? Because that's if we're not feeling confident in ourselves and we're feeling quite foggy in our thinking, having a look at people we admire as an example is just a really great place to begin. And so, again, now is a great place to pause the video, give yourself as much time as you need to just think about those questions.
And I think that last point really is important, that also we can have kind of virtual mentors where like watch TV shows, listen to interviews watch films with very strong, confident characters in that in some way they resonate with you. And you can kind of channel those people that you admire. But I think pay attention to the content that you're watching or what you're listening to. Are they role models for how you want to be? And if they're not, start watching some people who are role models for you.
Exactly. It's so powerful, right?
It's just all stuff that you're feeding your brain and your brain's taking it all in.
Exactly. Okay, so once we've completed that, the next thing we want to do is, and this is kind of like we're just again we're exploring it, is giving your brain like a specific action and a destination to move towards. So you've gathered all that lovely information, you've had an explore about what you might do. Now what we want you to do is drill it down to a very tiny action. Again, we're thinking really small. If we want to read, it's like we're going to read a paragraph. If we want to meditate, it's like we're going to try 30 seconds once in a week. And I mean like literally once. If we're trying to go to the gym more, it's like when can I go or when can I do a home workout? Think about in terms of when we're moving up that scale, what is a tiny, tiny step of how we are going to move forward. And you don't have to answer all of these questions, but we can just answer the ones that feel best. And then what I want you to do is just formulate that into a SMART goal. So when would you do that? So take your time, pause the video, and when you're ready, you can just come back and write out your sort of tiny step. And it should be, I will do this action on this day at this time. And give yourself like a week to accommodate that. And then because we've given and put it in your diary as well, that really helps because our brain thinks about commitments in our diary very differently. It's like we have to honor them. So if you pop that in your diary, you'll be more likely to keep it. And also by making it very specific, our brain's like, okay, cool, we've got our command, we know what we're doing. And so once you've finalized your action, and please do pop in the comments what your action is if you want to share. Please let us know how you get on with it. It's always wonderful when people engage and we want to see people moving forward. So that's great. If you find that actually it's gone a bit right and you've set your action that's maybe a bit too expansive, what I would say in terms of bits of advice in getting back on track is dial back the expectations on your health you have on yourself. We all have really busy lives. We all have that third element that comes into play when we're not expecting it. There's absolutely no problem if you need to defer that small action for a different time, or you want to think actually it would be more beneficial for me to take 5 deep breaths in the evening rather than trying to meditate. There's nothing wrong with that adjustment. You are the expert on you, so you can set that wonderful action that moves you forward and take that 2 minute break and reconnect in with your vision, because that vision, that very clear destination will help you inform the small actions that you want to take going forward. And it's practice. It's just practicing like any skill, like learning to ride a bike, learning to swim. It's the same when we start to build this new habit in our brain. Write it down. That in our brain again really cements that level of commitment. If you're finding yourself in your head too much and that snow globe is looking really fuzzy and the world's looking really like overwhelming, move your body or have a glass of water, because there's something really good about just doing those actions that helps us move away and helps the snow globe of the brain sort of settle. And if you get to doing your task and you're finding yourself quite resistant to it, don't be afraid to like put a little task timer on and even like wind it down a bit more to like, if it was a 20-minute task, just start by doing 5 minutes and just start, because you'll find once you get going, even if there's resistance in the brain, more often than not, you'll be fine to get involved and to continue. Keep those changes small. And if it's too much, take a breath and really just settle your body. Because what we want by having that long, slow inhale, but a longer, slow exhale, you can inhale for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 6. That just really helps you settle, because primitive brain will be feeling quite unsettled and stressed. But when we're breathing in a slow rhythm, it really just helps calm our brain and reassure primitive brain that we're not under direct threat. So it's very good. And don't be afraid to reach out for help. Ask your peer group for support. Reach out if you have questions, you can reach out to myself or Emily. But yes, that we are a community, as we said. Don't be afraid to reach out and help you move towards your wonderful future that we all know you're so capable of.
Fantastic, Julia. Well, thank you so much. I know we're almost out of time. I really appreciate you talking us through all of that. And I think, some really clear messages from this are, you know, what our brain can work against us. It wants to keep us safe, as you said, versus happy. So that means that when we're thinking about goals, one of the reasons we might not feel confident or we might feel nervous is it's just our primitive brain trying to keep us safe. And the answer to that is to create positive visualizations about our goals, but then come back to the smallest, most unthreatening actions we can take and just spend 5, 10 minutes taking an action. And then your brain will be like, oh, that's okay. I didn't I
Yes,
didn't die. It was fine that I took the action. And the other thing I would add to that is, and then when you've taken the action, celebrate like crazy. Like it's the
yes.
best thing you ever did. And then your brain again is like, okay, that was a good thing I did. I took an action. And actually, we can achieve huge, amazing goals by adding up lots of these teeny tiny steps. So just thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Anytime. I'm thrilled to be here, and it's always a pleasure to collaborate with you.
Fantastic. We'll share loads of details in the description and please reach out if we can help you achieve any of your goals.